In here, I had said that it's not really an error, but I would compose a letter and get it to Diane. I just did it now. So this
Well,
will
you
actually.
still got it.
Yeah, this will be a topic of discussion at the next meeting, and I'll bring that up. But, I'm surprised Kathleen Flaherty isn't here. She has been showing lately. County occasion. I don't have any problems. Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second. And I got Virginia, seconded. Janice was made the motion to accept the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay. Let me just say. Anybody have any comments on the letter that's in front of you? This is the letter that I just mentioned about being sent out to those who have missed, and some who I know have legitimate excuses, but we need to back that up, and those who don't, we may have to take action at the next meeting, and I do want a vote on this at the next October meeting. Anybody have any comments, any statements?
Yeah, I do.
Opinions?
I think we've talked and talked and talked about this. I mean, why not put it to a vote now? Why wait until October?
Well, I think we need to give those who have 6 or more an opportunity to respond, and then we can discuss their responses at the next meeting, and then it'll clarify and back us up as to taking action.
Well, on several meetings already, we've agreed that we would send out a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'd have to reverse all of that if we didn't do it.
How many meetings, this is number 3, did he notify that he was gonna be absent?
I'm using the,
I think this is 3, right?
I'm using the 6 or more criteria right now. And we were looking, did it ever get into print what the criteria was about this 3 in a row? Does that really exist anywhere, or was that just our discussion?
I think it was just our discussion.
Well, I'm talking about the Board of
You
Supervisors.
mean the 3 consecutive?
Yeah, without notifying us.
I think that was,
To the board, to
yeah,
the
that was
board,
done.
to the supervisor.
I thought it was just discussed.
I gotta believe if we made a suggestion that the person just continuously doesn't show up though, regardless if they contact us or not, they should be removed.
It's not, it's not 3 in a row.
What is it?
Wait, you're talking 2 different things there.
Yeah, I am, that's correct.
He asked me a question.
I know. But I think the question was, what was presented to the supervisors, the board of supervisors in the
And what did
past?
they accept or approve or decide the criteria should be?
That was probably a year ago or more.
Yeah, something
More
like
than
that,
that.
correct.
The gentleman who was on the board, who was a deputy, I believe?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was removed.
Right.
That's when it
Joe
was
Brophy.
discussed, yes,
No.
Brophy
Dan.
resigned.
Not Dan Brophy, it was Ray Strobel.
Right.
yes.
Oh.
Dan resigned, Ray was
That's
removed.
right.
But that's when I think it was brought forward.
Mhm.
And
That was-
it was 3 absentees, and we put a vote into it.
But he also had a substantial number of, like 2/3 of the meetings he didn't come to.
Well, it wasn't just that, he didn't notify
Yeah.
us either.
It had to be,
Why?
probably
I'm going back to,
December, January.
okay, he
Well,
was
here's
here,
the
he
thing,
was
that
here
I-
in February.
I wanted to make a point here is that I know in our board of what do you call it? Our
Advisory
board.
The Stoneybrook Board of Directors. What we do there is that if we have 3 in a row without notification, or an excuse, we remove you from the board, we can. And we use that in this committee as a criteria to make that decision, but I'm not sure it ever got written down in stone that that was the requirement for the Board of Supervisors.
I think it was, because that's what we used to remove Ray.
I think because we were using the similar criteria from the Board of
He
Directors.
was
then.
eliminated on January 15.
Of
We spent a
2014.
lot of time on this.
I'm not sure that's a word I would use, but eliminated.
While she's looking,
2014,
Did
and
they
the
ever find his
motion
body?
was to amend the motion to recommend the board after 3 consecutive absences without prior notification will be used as a guideline to remove committee members.
okay, possibly we need to amend that, or six or more absences in the course of a year of 12 months.
Is that a
What?
motion?
I'll
Why
take-
don't we leave it the way it is? What?
Because he occasionally does notify, he just doesn't show.
He usually does it on that third week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third time.
He plays the game.
That's true.
Well, I would vote against that.
What?
Because
The
Tom
sixth.
misses
Okay.
one. So, that's why I like the unexcused one better.
Okay.
Because if you're not, if you're,
Well,
the problem, the reason
well-
why we made that in the first place is
So
because
much time.
we needed to find out if people were
So
coming.
much
So have, find out if we had a quorum.
quorum.
You know, if
But
you
now we have-
notify us, we knew, and then we could make arrangements. Is this the right day, or do we need to change it?
I know, I have at home, the schedule of how many he's missed, and I don't want you to print up a whole nother one. Do you have one handy there?
Mhm.
And then we could just add on the last couple of months.
It's up to date. Counting today, it'll be 10,
In what period of time?
12 months.
since February 18th, 2014.
That's more
That's
than
more-
12.
more than 12.
What is it over the last 12, though?
Let's see, go
Yeah.
back.
I gave you my copy, didn't I? I had a copy.
I have it too, I just don't have it with me.
It's like 8.
Okay, so 2/3. I think that meets some kind of criteria to make an exception. I really do.
But this is his third time not notifying too, I think.
He didn't call last time, he called the time before,
So
and
is
now
it-
he didn't call.
This is only the second time.
Second.
What he does is he plays the game on the third time.
The 6 months you're talking about, though, you're talking about 6 absences or 6 times that it didn't call in?
6 absences you were talking about.
Yeah, well, that could be one of the criteria, is you want him to qualify and make it 6 absences, whether they're in a row or not, without calling, over a period of 12 months.
I think
But
what
he's
we have-
Cool.
Make it an
I think-
either
I think
or,
what we have
make
now is
it an
fine.
either or,
But he's
3 in a
cool.
row or 6 over the period of 12 months without notifying us.
Yeah, but he's
That-
called,
that
he
makes-
he calls every
He
third
calls
meeting.
in between.
So you
and-
can- Yeah.
But he'll still meet that 6
He'll
criteria.
need that 6 that he didn't notify
Yeah,
for over the
12
year.
months, yeah. I'm willing to take a motion on that. Anybody wanna
Say that
make it?
again?
Well, what's the real problem?
We like to get the numbers down. We like to get the numbers down, and if he's, why have him on the list if I can get somebody, if you wanna keep 9, get somebody else who wants to do something if he doesn't wanna do anything.
Okay, well, that's not, the real problem's not in here. You didn't state the real problem in here. That's why I asked,
Yeah.
what's the problem? The problem, it seems to me, is that's one problem. The bigger problem is, to me, is if they don't call in and you wind up not getting a quorum, you get everybody here or the ones that are
And
gonna
you're
show.
sitting there in person
And you
short.
wind up without a quorum. That's not in here either. You know, what's in here is a lot of negatives. You simply do not have the time or desire. If you're no longer committed, this is a very, very negative letter.
Oh, I agree.
And
I agree.
it doesn't state the reason why it's a problem, why it's an issue. You say it's unfair, I'm not, it's unfair.
Unfair to the other committee
It's unfair
members.
if you don't call in and say, I can't make it, I can't be there.
But I think it goes beyond that, Tom. I think it's unfair even if you do call in, you never come. Suppose he called in 12 times in a row but never came.
That
Why be
shows,
on the committee?
that shows that he's not interested.
Right.
Well, 12 times in a row would be, yeah.
8 out of 12. That's a pretty big number. I don't know.
Well, I had a discussion with him at one of the functions up there, and he walked up to me and he said, hey, I heard you no longer on the committee. I heard you resigned. I said, well, no, I didn't. So somebody on this committee apparently told him that I had resigned, but,
Wasn't me.
I
well,
haven't seen him for months.
It doesn't matter, but I said, no, I didn't resign. I said, I offered to if they needed to get their numbers down or, if there was some other issue. But there hasn't been one time since I've been on this committee that I haven't been here that I didn't call in.
I agree.
Every single time. And I travel a lot, I'm gone a lot, but it.
And you did offer your resignation to me, and I denied it. I said I'd prefer that you didn't, and for some of that same reason.
Just so you know, it is 9. I forgot to count them.
9 out of 12.
9 out of 12.
That makes it worse.
3/4.
And it also depends on what kind of person do you want on this committee? I mean, do you not want snowbirds on this committee? I'm not a snowbird, but But,
That's not the issue here, though, you know that.
well, I know it isn't, but you're making a general policy that is gonna apply to whoever else is on the committee in the
That's
future.
true.
So it needs to cover all circumstances and not be directed at one particular individual. I think you need a diversity on this. I think you need snowbirds on this. Snowbirds look at this community differently than full-time residents.
We don't have any snowboards, so do we?
No.
No.
Does anybody else have any opinion on that?
And
If there's snowbirds for more than a month, a couple of months,
Most snowboards usually come for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
Right.
that's true in
Four
our area,
months,
in
4 or 5 months.
in our community, that's probably true.
I think people who are in and out a lot more have a different outlook on what to expect out of the community and bring a different perspective to the committee. So I'm, I hate to say it, but I mean, do you want a committee full of people who have nothing better to do than sit around and wait for the next committee meeting to start? That's a little harsh, but I mean, it's almost what you're saying.
I'm not sure I agree with that either.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
I'm looking at the people on this committee, and I think most of these people are pretty busy.
And for the most part, stay active and do other things, and I agree with that. But nevertheless, I think it does take commitment, both to come to meetings, and I'll use as an example, and this is one that's stuck in my throat. We had a road turnover committee. We had 3 members from the Stoneybrook that were on that road turnover committee. Not once did anyone ever stand in front of a board meeting or discuss what was going on. And I stand at that podium, and Bill Guy looked at me and said, well, how did you not know what was happening? You had 3 members on your committee. Because that committee, I think, has an obligation to go back to the community and communicate what that
sure.
committee's doing.
Absolutely.
And this committee needs to do that also. This is a two-way communication link as far as I'm concerned. We go back, whether it's at the board meeting or just even at get-togethers, and communicate what we know is happening and why certain things are happening certain ways. Whether it's the palm trees on Gateway Boulevard or sidewalks, or we're gonna discuss a little bit later about the sidewalk in Stoneybrook. There are things that's, I think, why we're here. Well, you can't do that if you're not here. And if you're not here because you're somewhere else, that's one thing. But if you're not here because you just don't feel like being here, you don't want to put the time into it, that's something entirely different. And I think we have an obligation to do something about that.
Well, I did ask Joe why he didn't call in regularly.
Well, I think I know the answer,
And
but go
he
ahead.
just blew it off. He did. He blew it off. He said, I've got this doctor's appointment, I got this,
But
and I'm
still,
not supposed to.
but how long does it take
And
to email
that's what I
any-
said. That's exactly what I said to him. I said, well.
You hit the reply button, it won't be there,
Yeah, and I asked him that again, and he just blew it off. So, I mean, my impression was he didn't care, and he was probably doing it just to irritate us.
And that's why we're
But-
taking some of the action we're taking. I
but-
don't know how else to do it.
Yeah.
9 out of 12, think about that.
I've asked him the same question, and the same response
Yeah.
he gave me was the same thing he's given you, or if not more, what are we even advising? Why are we even there?
So then he doesn't really care about this committee. If
We
he,
all know that.
yeah,
Well, what's his actions say? His actions say he doesn't care.
Well, let me say this, are we in agreement, does anybody absolutely oppose sending this letter out? I know that, I don't wanna, that we can have a vote and approve it if you'd like.
I think you can write the letter. I don't think we need to approve a letter, but I would,
No,
I would
in
try to make
theory,
it a little more
the letter
positive.
has to come from Diane. Because of the sunshine law, I can't send it out, it has to come from this office. So I'm passing it through her, and I'm giving you the opportunity to object to it if there's something you don't like. I'm not entirely sure I gotta state all the reasons, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet why, there are certain things I think that are just apparent, why we need to be communicated with, why we need you to show up. And I think that not being fair to the other committee members covers some of the other finer
Do you
details.
wanna put a part in here, though, something to the effect of numerous times the committee members have been,
I think, yeah.
Be careful, it's gotta be
If you
truthful.
add
You
more
gotta-
to that, might
no,
add
no,
more to the
it
fire.
this is, inconvenience due to, not following, proper protocol, like calling to notify that you can't make it, cause quorum was not met.
Well, we haven't had a quorum problem for over a year, and that was a problem for a while there, but I think we've had it hasn't been a problem recently. We've had a couple of close calls, but I don't think we had any last minute, we didn't make it because people didn't show.
Yeah, back in March of 2014.
Yeah, it's over a year, and so, in effect,
Oh,
I'm not sure.
July 9th, 2014.
Really?
Yeah. That meeting was, and then that's, I think, it.
Yeah. I'm not sure that carries as much weight, because it hasn't been a problem to the extent that it was at one point in time.
Yeah.
Because remember when we had the 11 people and we had several not
Yeah,
showing?
yeah, we had some issues.
I'd like to move on from this subject, and I'd like to get this letter sent out. So,
You need a motion, I'll make, isn't that what you
do we
need?
really need to, or do you want, do what you
Just
think,
send
feel
it
more
out.
comfortable with, the committee approves you sending out this letter?
I think you should do a motion.
Okay.
That gives me a directive.
Okay.
I'll make that.
Got a motion from Stan
I'll
that
second it.
approving the letter. We got a second from Dick over here to the motion to send this letter out. Is there any further discussion?
We're gonna put this to the end next month.
Yeah, and we'll close the door on this next month. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll send this letter out. All right. Sorry to beat that to death. Elle,
Yes, sir.
sorry to tie you up over there.
No, it's not a problem. Anytime I can help.
But before we go into this, I just want to make a comment that I got a call from Margaret. I think it was Crooked Creek. We were supposed to do some plantings down at the end in the cul-de-sac. And she says nothing's happened yet.
Okay, I'll double check into that. I am actually coming down there tomorrow to do my landscape inspection.
Okay.
I do know that we had a proposal too, unless that's the one with, there's a Mexican petunia.
I specifically, I don't know off the top of
Yeah,
my
that
head.
may be it. There was one that had a, Mexican petunia all under the oak tree in the cul-de-sac. And part of the proposal was to remove the Mexican petunias before we plant. And those can be kinda difficult if you're not aware of they're an invasive exotic species, and they'll be popping up in there from now until the end of time. But we wanted to cut them down and spray them a couple of times before we put new plants in on top of them that we're gonna go pick them out of.
Can you verify that?
I
and
will
let me know?
verify that tomorrow.
And copy Margaret on that too, is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, good.
Crooked Creek.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you. I think you got something here about budget, cost of straw
Budget, cost of
bales,
straw
anything you
bales.
wanna talk about?
No, I
here?
didn't, that was from,
Any follow-up
I'm
maybe on that?
confused.
Yes.
We discussed bales last month. the
No,
straw.
she was
Remember
gonna
on
check because.
the proposals, they asked why was the straw so expensive? It was $7 a bale. or
Yeah, that
something.
seems
Yeah, that's a
high.
contractual price.
Is
yeah.
it really?
Mhm.
That seems expensive.
$7 a bale.
Well, I think we're
I
paying less
think
than that
that's
in the
what it
Stony
was.
Brook contract.
I know, I paid less than that for my extra. I paid $5.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
Huh?
That's
Yeah, that's
installed, yeah.
installed, yeah.
No, no, I realize that, but I know what we're paying with Stony Brook on the bills of that, and I know we're paying a lot for the wood chips, but I don't think we're paying $7 for it, and maybe that's why they've gotten so small. Seems
Yeah, it could be.
like.
They shrunk them.
Thing was, they wanted to know what was in there.
Oh, what's in the plant replacement?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I still don't have that information.
Okay,
In the new budget?
Yes, what's left in it?
what's left from this past year?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because we wanted to use some of that money up before we
Right.
start throwing stuff into next year. Unless some of that budget rolls over into that budget, but I don't think it works that way.
Probably use it. or
I think it just shows up as surplus and gets thrown into the bottom total reserve number.
Yeah, but I think there's a way to tag it,
All right,
carry it over.
you wanna talk to Steve about that then, or
Yeah,
Cal?
we have,
Okay.
So we need-
Okay, but yeah, the pine straw, it's a, what's that called, when they give us prices for each
Mhm.
little thing that we might have.
It's
for
an
the
itemized
labor.
line
Unit
item,
price.
yeah,
A unit price for each bale of straw installed is $7.
contractually, okay,
And that's in our contract too.
gotcha.
Again, I don't have the numbers on what's left in the plant replacement, and I apologize to you all for that. I will make sure I have that. I will get that as soon as we get it from Severn Trent, and I'll ask Diane to inform all the committee members of the numbers.
I do have a question about the Mexican petunias. Is that a gateway-wide attitude where we're removing this wherever it is, or is
No.
it just something, oh, 'cause I don't find it that offensive personally. I don't know about others here, you know, if you contain it. The Mexican petunias.
I
yeah.
think the reason that we went for it there is that they do, require a lot of water. You can't let them miss a day without water, so if we wanted to put something else in there and make it look
Nice.
nicely and
In
balanced.
the dry season.
We wanted to use plants that were compatible with the same types of water use, or the
Okay.
water requirements.
All right, I'll buy that. Anybody have any questions for Al?
I never knew they were invasive though.
I didn't
Yeah,
either.
that's, they don't go in that.
Yeah,
no
they're
problem.
category 1 invasive, they're one
like
of the
them.
worst.
Well then why are they planting them all over the place?
It's called money.
Yeah, they're cheap, and they multiply and spread, and then, you know.
It's the same reason you can still go to the, pet store and buy hydrilla and limnophila for your aquarium, but we spend thousands of dollars
To
to treat
remove
it
it.
in our flowways.
So we should be farming it in our flowways and selling it at the aquarium store?
There you go, that would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
Okay.
I did get the, pullback for the removal of pine trees in Stoneybrook from Anchor Tree Service. They were
Okay.
the only company that got back to me. He did include a couple of trees that would be on lake property that would probably come out of the 004. I
Okay.
just need to figure out which ones. How do we approach that? Just try to get separate bills?
Get us an estimate, and we'll send it through the,
I have the estimates on one, but I can just take out which ones that aren't on.
I'll just mark them, and then we'll look
Okay.
at it.
Yeah,
And-
just mark them
Because
differently
the quote
and,
came back on like $1,800 to remove some, I mean, it was not bad, I
Okay.
felt.
yeah, they do have some fairly reasonable pricing, that's why we do use them a lot, but
Okay.
just send them an email and, let them know that you talked to me, of course, and, that those two are actually on Gateway property and they need to be billed separately
Cause you know
to
which ones
Gateway
I'm talking
Service.
about, right? The ones that are,
That
some
are right
oak
there, but-
trees that are in the.
Yeah, in your open, green reserve space.
No, these would be in the, on the lake, right? on the lake.
Actually,
yeah,
to be
yeah.
honest with you, be careful now. Lakefront, within the lake
Maintenance
confines,
easement.
it is within the easement?
Well,
Yeah.
that's what he's saying, if it's within the easement, then it's ours.
That's where I'm
It's
heading.
in- it's-
Ours means not 004. Ours means 001.
That's correct, it would be in the 001 budget. Stoneybrook is 004.
Okay, that's right.
Okay,
Those-
because that's how we got those cypress trees planted, because they did impact, they were there as a requirement for the
And that
lake
came in the
maintenance.
001.
And that came out of
Yes.
001 money.
Okay, so some of these trees need to be paid out of the 001 then.
Well,
That'd be approval.
Tag
for
them
you guys.
separately and let Anchor Tree know to, send us the proposal,
Okay.
Okay?
so that it can be billed separately.
Appreciate that. Did you have a chance to get out there and look at a couple of those cypress that probably, or other trees?
Yeah, there's several of them.
And we'll get- yeah,
Yes, I
gotta
have
go.
looked at several of them that,
They haven't changed in 3 years.
How about 7 or 8?
Yes.
and they're never gonna look good.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them like that in Daniels Preserve too, they were just planted too deep.
Probably
There's-
Lennar used the same company, I guess.
Probably, they're just, they'll never reach their potential, they're stunted.
And there's a
forever.
couple that are outright, literally dead.
Dead, yeah.
That need to be
Okay.
removed. All right, anybody else, anything for Al?
Yeah, I got a quick, Al, did they plant any kind of grass along the edges of the lakes to stop the erosion? Because I see a lot of it
Ooh.
popping up.
That's a complex subject when you talk about lakes and lake erosion.
Did we plant any
Yeah.
plants in there? No.
Grass or whatever, I don't know,
Gateway
whatever.
Services has not actually planted anything in there. Now, the developer was required to plant deep lake trees and the littoral areas, which are predominantly where the ponds meet, Pebble Brook. Where they face Pebble Brook. Those are planted, supposed to be planted littoral shelves, and I'm sure they were planted up nicely at one time, and basically what you have there now is spike brush.
That's probably
although
what
you-
I'm talking about, is the brush.
I'm not sure they really were all planted as they should have been in the beginning.
Well,
I think there
and
were
you could
spots
very
that were-
well be right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue that point whatsoever, but, I do know that a lot of other spike rush has come up, has recruited naturally along some of the other pond banks. And, no, I haven't rushed in there to take it out, because it does help to stabilize the banks.
That's what I thought it was, yeah, I know on the lake in back of, Ivystone, there's a lot of that, I
Mhm.
guess, date brush popping up.
Uh-huh.
Look like grass to me, I'm from up
Yes.
north.
Or reeds, it's actually
Weeds.
kinda like it's a rush, and it's hollow in the middle like a reed.
What's the long-term situation? Is that the long-term plan to remove that or just leave it there? I know.
I would just leave it there.
Okay, so I know that,
If you have no objections to it, I would leave it there, because it is to the benefit of the water body itself. It also uptakes nutrients that
Yeah, we-
run off into the water, and if you didn't have those plants there, we would be spraying algae a lot more often. Now, you'll still see algae happen in Stoneybrook. I see it more as a seasonal issue than an ongoing issue. You get it seasonally when we have the first flush. That would be like, in June, because everybody rushes to get their fertilizer down in May, because then you have your blackout period, and then the rains start in
Mhm.
June, and you get all that, we call that the first flush, the runoff.
gotcha.
You're gonna have
Everybody runs out to
algae.
fertilize. Well,
Everybody will.
how do we, as long as we're on that particular subject, how do we make out with the aerator on that one lake that was not working?
We had the bearings were burnt,
Mhm.
and we have, approved the proposal, Scott approved the proposal right away, and they are ordering a replacement compressor.
Okay. Okay, I thought that might have, I was hoping that might have been ordered and on its way in already.
It very well may be, it may already be in, but I'll be down there tomorrow. Unfortunately, today I did pond inspections, but I had to go to the south end of the property,
Mhm.
and I hadn't seen Dennis Preserve in a while.
And just for those of you who, Stan, just wanna make a point that, what's happening right now, and I think they can touch upon, know a lot more about than I do. Gateway is looking at lakes, all the lakes in the community, and they're prioritizing them, what needs work. And there's gonna be a lot of work on these lakes and on plantings and.
Going forward the next several years.
We're talking millions of dollars. And that's just not Stoneybrook, that's Gateway, but
Yes.
it's a major project and,
And it's not just Gateway,
Yeah.
not just Gateway. Every community, every other CDD that I know of that has stormwater ponds, it just has to be done on, a periodic basis. The banks wear down, they wash in, they get eroded. It happens, it's nature. She takes it away and we have to put it back.
so just be prepared for higher ERUs. It'll be a lot of money.
But before we do any work on the pond that you may or may live on in Stoneybrook, you would be notified well ahead of time that there was upcoming construction.
Mhm.
We're not just gonna go in and one day all of a sudden you see
I
the
think-
track hoe running down the side of the pond.
I think we
We're
have
gonna
one
let you
lake
know.
that is higher on the priority list, right? One of those lakes, I think, is.
Yeah, we just did, we had the bathymetric and the coring samples taken on 60 and 62 and 63.
Okay.
They were found to have a lot of inorganic sediment on the bottom.
Which gets swampy.
Which is telling you that the banks have eroded.
Mhm.
Inorganic means sand, dirt,
Mhm.
rock. Organic, we would be looking at, maybe we need to have the streets swept more often. That would be your leaves and grass and vegetative debris that gets into the pond and breaks down and ends up in the bottom.
Well, I know I've had a couple people who were blowing their debris out to the street, and I gave them a hard time, said, no, you can't do that, you gotta go the other way. And then you worry about the landscapers too, but usually they're pretty responsible of getting it back up on the
Mainscape is
lawn.
very well aware
But I'm
of that.
talking all the private ones that come in for the
Yeah,
residential.
the private ones I have
yeah.
no control over, but Mainscape is very well aware that if I see any of their employees blowing grass or debris down a storm drain, that employee will get in their truck and go home
Mhm.
a day without pay. I don't play it. Out of my contractor.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
So that's a huge problem then.
Not so much with the contractors, but
With the independent ones though?
yes,
Yeah.
independents and, a lot of times with homeowners, the residents themselves that just don't understand what happens when all of that gets blown into the water, because all the street drains go directly to a pond.
Everything goes in your pond.
Everything goes to a pond. Anybody that doesn't live directly next to a pond, affects the pond across the road from them.
Which
With
is,
their fertilizer and grass
Grass.
and debris down the storm.
and
drain.
debris also includes, this is one of the reasons we are tough, try to be tough on this.
Plastic bottles and.
Well, dog droppings and whatnot,
The
because
dog
that-
droppings is one of the worst things,
Yeah.
one of the
Hmm.
worst.
They're, one of the communities in Gateway had a serious problem with bacterium in their ponds. And they, I think the conclusion was it was because some of the areas that were being used for the dog bathrooms.
Dog waste disposal and grass clippings. But that has been addressed by their HOA and that pond is actually coming
Cleaned up.
back around.
Good.
I saw my neighbor pick up his dog droppings and throw them in the lake.
Oh,
Oh,
jeez.
beautiful,
I told Christie.
lovely.
Maybe we should put something in the scoop about the grass clippings going into the drain, and I don't think that's gonna ever really.
I pick up myself and I usually dispose of it myself.
I've never heard of that as being an issue. It probably do need to make a point
All
out.
right, we'll do that. We'll get Mimi out on that. Anything else for us, Al?
No, sir, thank you very much.
Thank
If-
you.
If I can
Thank
be
you.
of assistance, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me.
You have a good one.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm sorry, I just have one question.
Oh, sure.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm not sure.
Yes, there's gators in the pond.
No, no, about the water, in the mornings. Is there a way to change the timers? Because, now that school's starting, when I leave.
The
at 5
irrigation timers?
Yes.
Yeah,
when I
you're
leave
probably popping on while the kids are
Do you know
walking
which
to work.
areas are?
Walking to school, I mean.
It's 5:30 in the morning and they're going off, Stone Valley to Pebblebrook, along the Long Lake, right around there. I don't remember if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday morning, but it's causing the kids to walk in the street.
No, that's no good.
Well, they were still going off this morning. It's almost
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw the same thing.
But if it goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's gonna affect my run time.
Yes, and that's the other thing too. We do try to
In his
run
dream, he's
hours
running at 3 o'clock in the
when
morning.
there's, you know, we try not to interfere with the residential irrigation. You know what I mean? We try to pick hours that are off different than what you would be running yours.
Doesn't look that way.
Because if we run all of our common areas at the same time, it could drastically reduce
Do we have
pressure.
a water pressure drop on the irrigation over the weekend, not last weekend, but the weekend before?
That I wouldn't know.
342? I don't know, maybe, I'm kidding.
No, because my irrigation. is-
While you were running.
was literally, nothing was coming out.
During the tropical storm, we shut her down.
Really?
That Saturday before the storm, we shut it down because we were under governor's, state of emergency and expecting 6 inches or more. We shut off the main system
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, because we don't wanna add to the flooding.
So now I'm gonna have
That
a higher
didn't
water
happen.
bill when I get my house pressure washed.
Why?
Well, I was off of regular city, right?
You were pressure washing during the tropical storm weekend?
We didn't have a storm.
I know,
We had a
I
nice
just
weekend.
But that was the reason, we did shut down the
Yeah.
system.
Okay. Makes
It was
sense.
shut down in preparation of the potential of 6 inches of rain.
Irrigation water usage has to be way down this year, I would think, because it's been a wet summer.
People don't
That
turn it off.
does- Yeah.
I turned mine
I
on.
turned mine off.
Really?
A lot of people don't.
Mine's been off for a couple months now.
I agree.
I saw people this morning watering their lawns.
And then they wonder why they have
Well,
dollar
other
weed
problems,
and
yeah.
mushiness and everything.
Yeah, sedge and
No,
dollar.
okay, I got that without having the irrigation system on, but
Yeah.
but the fact is, 'cause I just assumed, does it build up in the wells, or do we store the wrong word, but, store that somewhere, or how does that work?
Well, over here at the treatment plant, behind me,
Mm-hmm.
when they produce the reuse for us, we have a 1 million or 2 million
A 2
gallon
million
tank?
gallon
2
tank.
million gallon tank that we store it, and we, during the winter months, when
You need
everybody's
it.
watering, they are producing more reuse, plus we draw from our wells.
Mm-hmm. But the wells, I would think, 'cause I remember a couple times
So
in
we're
past
not using the
years,
wells like
those
we-
wells were getting, kinda low, and we were on a mandatory, going back before you were here.
Yeah, okay, but
Back
we
before
haven't
you were
had
here.
an issue,
No,
we've stored enough, and
I'm probably going back to, Bill Knight.
Yeah.
we did make sure we pumped down while we shut it off, because they're still producing,
Mm-hmm.
so we took care of all
Yeah,
that.
back then, it was, actually, we were under a mandatory water restrictions. So that's why it was just greatly reduced. So it's not that the wells are deep enough, they can reach the water.
You actually did have water, okay, it wasn't like.
Yeah, we
The
have
wells are deep enough, we
different-
can reach the water,
Mhm.
but if we're under mandatory restrictions, we only want to store so much in the tank.
Absolutely, I understand that, but I guess my question then also is, water tables must be coming up, I would think that.
No, I think they're way up.
Yeah, but these wells have gotta be in pretty good shape
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Well, our
Alright.
wells are usually from an aquifer from up north too, aren't they usually set down?
Yeah, we're down, we're
We
deep,
are-
we're in the lower
Are we in the
Hawthorne.
sandstone or
Sandstone.
Hawthorne?
We have,
Yeah.
they vary.
Yeah.
Different wells are
When you
different
gotta start
depths.
paying attention to well water is what happens in like North Florida or like even like in like Tennessee area, isn't it? Like if they have a bad drought,
I don't know
it's,
about Tennessee, but
some states, I
Yeah.
think, but if they have a bad drought, that's gonna affect our.
I know when Georgia had a drought a few
Oh,
years
no,
ago, it
like
was
that.
affecting North Florida, I
Yes,
remember that.
because the water sheet flows across
Yeah,
the nation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as we go in and we develop and we divert streams and we divert rivers and we put in culverts and ditches to drain it somewhere else, all of that affects our aquifer storage,
Gotcha.
or the volume that's stored in our aquifers. We seem pretty savvy on that.
All right.
The irrigation, let me get back to that. You said 5:30 in the morning it's going off and
Yeah.
there's kids out there on the school. I was trying to get at a good time to have them, all irrigation should be off by.
The kids out that early?
Some
of these kids are on the bus at 6:45.
Are they really?
Yeah.
High school students
I'm
have to
still
go to
asleep.
school at ungodly
Well,
hours.
you think about it, if you're in
You
the back
wonder
of the
why they
community,
have
it takes
sleep
20
in
minutes to
school.
walk
Yeah,
to the bus stop.
yeah.
So by 5 o'clock, you think?
At least.
I would say,
Yeah, or 5:30, maybe shut off, quarter to, I mean, I'm not too, I don't have children, so I'm not sure what the school schedules are.
Right, I
Seven
was
in
just
the
going by the,
morning.
Yeah.
you said that you were
I would say
driving-
that the earliest buses are probably high school kids, you know,
Yes.
it's a little bit easier on them than it is the younger ones, but, and some of those kids are driving too, but there still are kids catching school buses out there early.
And we don't want them
They
to
really
have to walk through the irrigation water to get there.
are. Yeah, they tough time dodging the trucks over there on Gateway Boulevard.
Although some of them may love the excuse to have to go home and, oh, I'm wet, gotta change.
Change their Air Jordans.
Okay, again, if I can help you out with
Okay.
anything else, don't hesitate.
All right, thank you,
Let me know.
Thanks,
take
Al.
care. Quotes regarding PATH, I did mention this before, we are actively right now at this meeting, our board meeting on the 21st of Monday of this month. We're going to have some quotes, and I think the tactic I'm going to try to use is have the board at Stoneybrook approve a quote to redo that sidewalk. And we had a couple options on how to do this. And then I would like, at that point in time, to present that to this committee and through Gateway to consider using reserve funds that we do have, which I know is well over $100,000 right now. And see how that flies, okay? Possibly down the road if need be, you know, we could look at some kind of shared cost, but I think all that money in the 004 account comes from Stoneybrook. This is Gateway-owned property. It's some of what this is all about, and I'd like to explore that.
Yeah, if it could be put to, productive use, why not, yeah.
Anybody have any comments on that? So that will be something we will probably explore in October. It'll be on the agenda. And if you're interested, you probably want to come to the September 21 meeting, because that will be, we'll be looking at those. And there is one, in fact, we're talking to the individual that you're using over here on
PMI?
Griffin.
PMI, yeah.
Yeah, and actually driving by, I didn't go out and actually close inspect, it doesn't look bad, looks like they're doing a nice job. I was just curious, what do you think, and what do your people think?
I don't know of any issues, so I don't have the luxury of watching
Okay.
it.
Well, we'll get more detail upon what they're proposing to do. I know it's pretty extensive to get this done right. And they're talking about completely scraping all up, cutting all the roots, and doing a lot of work and putting a nice thick layer on.
Yeah, what they did over here on Griffin Drive is on the asphalt areas, which is what you have, they went through and they, what they pulverize it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they regrade it, and then they put down the new asphalt on top.
Makes sense.
So, it seemed to work out well.
Okay,
Good sub-base underneath.
that's what I want to
Is
hear.
that going to include the sloughs? The drains off?
Actually, we didn't approach the sloughs on that particular item, but
The
If I-
flumes?
Flumes,
Flumes, yeah.
I said that wrong,
Yeah.
flumes.
I don't think that's part of the quote that we're talking about, strictly but I tell you, the guy who did the concrete work for the pads for the
Benches.
benches, and the benches have been ordered, just to let everybody know. That particular individual may be considered to be the one to contact to come back and touch up those flumes where they need a little bit of work.
The flumes are, I mean, they're pretty flimsy anyway, but the way they trim the grass around them, they
It's
run,
washing out some of
they
the,
trim the grass and the water flows across and hits it and runs down and it erodes right out.
Water runs under it anyway.
yeah, and, well, one of our
Well,
concerns
yeah.
is that there's
It
one or two
doesn't help.
spots that don't come all the way down, that literally could break loose and that whole piece of concrete can slide
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
slip. And we'll, and I think that will be the way we'll address that, is with the other guy. This guy's more about the asphalt. Any questions about that? All right, so if you're interested in finding out more details, the Monday meeting on the 21st, we'll do that. Pressure washing contract with Sweeper Man.
Just so you know, I know there's been some previous discussion. I was in touch with Tad yesterday, and
He's
he
gotta
asked,
be aware we were not happy last year.
I'm aware of that.
I know, but he's
And
gotta be aware of it
He
too.
redid that. So maybe what we can do, we can call and have a meeting with him again. I mean,
But he
he
hasn't
asked
done it
me,
yet, has he?
No.
he asked me about the schedule
Okay.
yesterday. When do we want him back in there? And I knew we were having this meeting, so, remember, last year, we did sign up for a 3-year
Mhm.
contract at
To
4
get a
cents a
better
square
price,
foot.
Right.
And 4 cents for the flat stuff, and then 12 cents for the curbs. And, you know, if you recall what he explained to me when he went out and redid it again, he hired some new guys and they wanted to impress the boss, and, you know, they were like lightning bolts through the job and did a horrible job, and they tracked and cleaned the wheels, and then they came back and
Still wasn't done.
still a job that wasn't satisfactory to you all, so, I'm sure he'll come, you know, I'll set up a time, and,
Let me know.
whoever you want to represent y'all, and, we'll meet with him, make sure he understands, I mean,
We could probably get a couple board members involved too,
Definitely include me on that.
and probably Paul will be happy to participate, who's now the president.
okay,
And, yeah, just let me know when you can put that together.
okay.
Can you get rid of those rust areas on the curbs?
That's a chemical treatment.
I know,
that's
but-
gonna be-
It's terrible.
Okay,
That would be an acid treatment. I'm not even sure we can do that legally.
I remember, even when Bill Knight was still here, and they were taking the mold off and everything, they were told that they couldn't, South Water.
Well, what happens, we were using chlorine and then something happened, I don't know if Jesse got some kind of license or whatever, but we were told we couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't use the chlorine.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me, because we'd be washing mold down into the lakes. Well, when you're pressure cleaning it, you're washing mold into the lakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, at least with the bleach, you were killing some of it. you
Yeah.
know?
we did bring that up last year when we talked to Sweeperman,
Yeah.
and he gave us a quote to use this biodegradable cleaner that works to a degree, and it was quite expensive, if you
Yes,
recall.
yes.
And the committee said, no, we're not gonna go that route, so they just use water, high-pressure water.
But with that, I think they need to do a better job, they really do, and we gotta
No
make that
argument.
perfectly clear.
Good, okay.
No more tire stripes.
Well,
Actually, they
they're-
look like lanes.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
lanes,
Yeah.
you stay in your lane when you're
That's it.
running in the morning. Just
There's a lot of
teasing.
jokes about that, let me tell you. All right, anybody have any questions about that? We are in the middle of this 3-year contract. The price was better to do it this way. We can exit the contract if we need to be with proper notification, but I'd like to give them another shot and see. But upfront, clearly, this is what we expect, so there's no doubt about it. Okay?
Well, there was that, and when he did the curves, it didn't come all the way back to
Well,
the
he
property
did
lines.
come back, and I
Yeah.
think the next time he went a little bit further, and I
Yeah,
don't know why that's not clear.
Hold his hand and point.
Maybe
Yeah.
this time he can start at the end of Pebblestone and work his way to the clubhouse.
Yeah. It's like they ran out of
He got a
gas.
little lazy, he got
Yeah, got a
lazy.
little
It got worse further down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was they were trying to go fast, I think they were trying to finish the job.
Yeah. Human
It's
nature.
a long way. Anybody else? You got anything for us, Scott?
I do,
Yeah.
and maybe you already touched on it,
Go ahead.
when I stepped out. I think did you have it in here about the my miscoding of some invoices on the,
I had brought that up.
did you, okay, you okay now?
Well, I didn't see it. Was there a response? I did not see the response. I noticed you had.
August 24th, I sent you a response.
Well, I didn't see it.
If you'd like
I saw
another
something
copy.
that you had sent a copy to them, but I didn't see a thing coming back to us.
Okay, well, here's what happened is Tetra Tech, I get a whole lot of invoices from Tetra Tech, and they had a category called field inspections. And in there, they had the 3 guys in there for X number of hours, and I thought, oh, okay, well, that was during the sidewalk inspection, so I just coded it. And that was my error. Well, it multiplied because they didn't divide it up in the billing. So it had some lake bank inspection, so we have that corrected, and it's been reallocated and should be showing up. Sonia. with
Okay, yeah, she works under
Severn
Steve.
Trent, she's our
Yeah.
accountant,
Yeah.
and she made the correction, so it was $1,200.
All right.
Versus the,
But with that said, I have
$2,800.
no report showing what they were promoting. And maybe I did not receive your thing, so I didn't notice it. I'll have to go back and look again on the 24th, but.
it came from Tyler Wainwright on, March 12th to you.
In the mail.
No, it was written to JT. March 12th, from Tyler.
March 12th?
March 12th at 8:46 a.m. And basically, it's an outline.
Because if I had
He sent it to JT, but he wrote, "Hi, Joe."
Was it JT or was it to Joe Tarza?
JT Thomas.
Sure it was.
Because if I had it, I would have used it and for the, putting the stuff out to bid to see, how they would follow
Yeah,
those
again, it's a written
recommendations.
narrative of what they found and their explanation, and it wasn't, from the, what the inspector had done. So I thought I copied the whole bundle.
Well,
and
the
sent
only
it to
thing
you.
I remember seeing, I can't find what we did for this. All I saw was a gross approximation of $150,000 to do the job. And with a comment, we'll get back to you with details.
Right,
I
that was
nev-
from the inspector, then
Yeah.
Tyler's the engineer who wrote up the cover memo,
Okay.
emailed it.
Nothing, no kind of diagram or anything that we're showing here or anything?
No, I didn't get a diagram.
Okay.
That would've cost another 3 hours.
Well, I knew that 16 hours from Danny didn't make sense.
No, I sure didn't. Actually, it was from a guy named Reardon. But
Okay.
anyway,
What
yeah.
day was that again? Alright, March 12th.
Check that out, and if you
Okay.
do find it,
But I'll
forward it
resend
to.
it. I'll
Okay,
resend it to you.
yeah,
To you.
do that,
So anyway, just follow it up as requested.
alrighty.
And I apologize for that error, but we got it fixed.
Yeah.
Moving the furniture.
It's a boomer.
All right,
I'm ready.
so as far as that goes,
I got 3 in the car.
I don't have anything else, no, there's no, obviously no audience out there. Anybody here have any comments?
How are you sending this letter out to him?
How?
How?
We'll be sending it out email, or do you wanna send it out in hard mail?
How would you like it?
I don't have a problem with sending it out email requesting a response that you have, because I'll be honest with you, failure to respond just helps to make our case.
Even to email?
You can return receipt on an email.
Actually, I will say this, although I have to admit, this is a CDD, there's a statute change in the state of Florida for HOAs, emails meet the requirements now.
Yeah, that's true.
So just keep that in mind.
Under that chapter.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
okay.
720, yeah.
I read my email, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure everybody does.
I know.
You got that right. But in any case, I don't have a problem with sending out email if you want to, I would send it out to everybody if you
Okay.
want. And then,
Just send it out like I send everything.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
I think so too.
All right.
All right, so, okay,
Yeah, I just was curious, so,
got a question? Any issues or?
what about the shrubs in the, where they
Oh.
took the palm trees?
I have an update. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
On that line, that brings up a point, but go ahead.
Okay, reference to the palm trees,
Mhm.
relocation of the palm trees and the islands and things. The palm trees seem to be doing fine.
Mhm.
They all look healthy.
Yeah, they do.
Pardon me?
Looks like there's 100% took.
So far,
So
they're
far.
working.
This
We had
guy
a
said he
we had a-
seemed awfully confident, he really did.
slight irrigation leak this morning, and they've been notified, and little pink flags are in the ground, and they're gonna
Okay.
come and make that repair.
Okay,
We are monitoring it. We have 3 people monitoring the trees for the irrigation. Us and Mainscape and O'Donnell Landscaping, so different days of the week. And recording that, Elle's tracking that, making
Fortunately,
sure.
we've had plenty of rain too, even
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
you know,
hasn't been an issue.
like that.
And we did have Mainscape go out and clean up, okay, you know, in removal of the palm trees, the street lighting that ran down there really took a beating.
Mhm.
And it was patched, and then the old cracks got water in it, and then another light went out, then another one. So we had our electrician, Bentley Electric, go out 5 or 6 times in a month, and finally get them all burning. And with the lightning strikes further down Gateway Boulevard, we had more lights go out around Gateway Greens. So we spent last month playing with streetlights, and now I have more lights out. Anyway, but not up in your area.
Working now.
So with all the potholing in there, I think they're done with that. So we went through and we had Mainscape coming through and sort of clean up the rocks and the holes, and they put pine straw down, and they were able to mow and trim a little bit better. I still want them to get out and weed eat around the stakes for the trees, you know, for the palm trees. They haven't done that in the wells. So, you know, is that the contractor or is that my maintenance guy, you know? It's one of those gray areas, but we'll get it addressed. But we did send out a request for proposal for design of the 3 bare islands, and I included the 4th one where the 9 palm trees sit on the north end. So the committee met yesterday, and they made a selection on one design firm, a local firm, and there were prices. There were 5 bids, 5 quotes, and it ran from $6,000. 2 of them were about $6,000, up to $14,000 for design work. Some of them might have missed the scope of work a little bit. So anyway, I'm pushing to get that done, and I want to get the design. I'm waiting to get authorization to issue a purchase order to the design firm to get going on it. And hopefully they'll have that completed within a 30-day period, and then we can contract it out. My goal is to have it planted in November.
My concern about this whole process, and I know that Rod did call me about this, not about the last night's meeting. I didn't realize they were meeting last night, because I didn't want to go to the next one.
We had a special meeting.
Yeah, because I thought it was later in the month.
Their normal meeting is, we had a special meeting to get this thing taken care of.
Right. Because I was concerned about, I know that Paul has been pushing, not our Paul, but
Paul Wingard.
Wingard has been pushing for really keeping everything low, because that's gonna be the new standards for visibility, and I'm thinking, how's that gonna look?
Well, that was, and thank you for bringing that up, Joe. It was discussed at their meeting, previous meeting, along with Rod, and also Al Donald was here as well. And there was a lot of discussion on that. What Paul Wingard was referring to is per the county requirements, you have sight lines and nothing higher than 18 inches and all that. And with the curve of the road, the speed of the road, there's a lot of criteria to meet and sight visibility. So if you take all that into account and live by the letter of the law and take it at face value, some of the islands, most of them only just have ground cover. Well, that's not what anybody wants. So we understand that. So we are looking for a designer who will push the envelope and speak with the county. We're not obligated to get approval from the county at this time. But in the future, when we go to turn the roads over, it has to meet county criteria. So with this designer that we're gonna get on board, we're gonna have him come up with a conceptual plan and give a courtesy copy and run it by staff at Lee County DOT, not through the whole network of people, and still push the envelope. So that we want frangible trees, we want some shrubs, we want some ground cover, we want some color, and the palette. There was a lot of discussion last night about making sure that we're going to share some of the thoughts that they had done previously. The landscape advisory committee from last night. So,
When do you think you'll have that proposal or the study in response to that?
okay, we took the quotes last night.
Mhm.
I'm waiting to write a purchase order, get them under contract, and, hopefully by the end of the week.
So that will be discussed at the next meeting then, or not even, won't even be necessary?
Won't even go to the board, other than information,
Okay.
so we can get this thing done.
What did you think?
What did I think about what?
Well, what was your opinion? You know what I'm talking about from the previous meeting, last night's special meeting. What did you think of the changes? Was it an improvement in your opinion?
Both low bidders were very qualified to do it.
And I guess my concern is sometimes I felt that, and I don't want to criticize him, I know he puts a lot of time and energy into this, but I felt that Paul was almost like representing the DOT than he was us. When we bring somebody on to be on one of our committees that has contacts, I'm looking for somebody to negotiate to get the best deal we can for us, not be telling us all the things we can't do.
I think it went well. You had a gentleman on the committee, new member.
Yeah, I know.
Coleman, Kevin,
Okay.
and we also had JB Schutz with the city of Fort Myers, who owns property in Stoneybrook,
Mhm.
and they understand what we want to do.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we're represented then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Did you know about the special meeting last night?
No, I didn't.
It was advertised on the website and on the front door. It was,
Not on the website over the weekend. It wasn't advertised until probably
it's still
after.
there.
I know, but I'm just saying, I
It
looked.
posted
I
up,
looked on
after the
Saturday,
weekend.
And there was no,
Yeah.
or Friday, there was nothing.
Could have been
on
late
it.
Friday.
Okay.
Speaking
I'm
of
just
which,
saying.
if I'm still
Could've been
having
late
trouble
Friday.
getting board
We're
member
obligated to put it on the
information.
door, and we did that.
Board of
What?
Supervisors, remember I had mentioned about Board of Supervisors that I can't get their email addresses through the website? And I know you guys were working on the website.
They're there.
You can, remember you said you can get them on your computer here? It
You
would-
put the lights
Yeah, I was
in
having a
it,
problem.
so
I gotta go
it's
back and I'll
taken
double
care
check that for sure. But I was having
I know
trouble.
that,
of.
Mr. Seniors wasn't coming up properly, and I went in and recoded his. and
Okay.
it came up.
I will check, I'll let you know what I can find, because if it's a problem, you know, obviously that's a problem. If I can't get it, you know, it means a lot of people can't get it.
Yeah.
This is landscape.
I know Internet Explorer, different, whatever, you use, is just.
Gotcha. All right, anything else, Scott, for us?
How long are those stakes gonna be up on the,
1 year.
1 year? Okay.
Yeah.
And when are the, power, or the poles gonna be replaced, light poles?
Our engineer's working on that. We have a bid package, which we're reviewing now, and it has 3 projects in one. One is to replace those light poles in the island. The other is to repair and replace in the soccer field lighting. And also looking at installing new lighting on on Griffin Drive, on the east side, going up from the school north to the end of the communities. But actually, part of it's on the other side, behind the new sidewalk, all the way up to 82. So there's 3 projects in one, but we can break it up. So I just was given that last Thursday, and we're chewing on it.
So this thing is moving forward. Do you think we'll have plants in the ground over there in that median before the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be pleasantly surprised, I hope so.
You know, my goal is Thanksgiving, but,
I got you.
that's my goal, but.
I know, I understand.
I'll do my best.
Anybody else?
So I have a question for JT. The lighting situation's all been corrected.
The burners, the day burners are fixed. Maybe they're gonna, I didn't get back to this whole month.
And, yeah, and there's been a lot of things going on, but we still got a few more lights to move.
Yeah, I still got
They're
it.
straight.
And right now, it's
No,
awful
they're all
wet.
straight.
Yeah,
Yeah, all that's all done. The next
for the
thing-
most part, yeah, they're
the next thing I
not
gotta
perfect, but they're much
get
better.
Eric and kind of figure out which one we need to move, they need handholds, and I didn't do anything this whole month.
So.
It was a number 1 producer at Remax, so I gotta say,
Hey.
money. But, yeah,
Anyone else?
I do. I just had a question with the median.
Sure.
In regards, I know the palm trees originally up there was also, we were arguing that it was a safety factor in case any cars are coming across lanes.
Mm-hmm.
In the landscaping, will they be possibly putting in any kind of barrier
Don't give me ideas.
Yeah.
and cover it within the flowers. I'm only asking because I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we were walking and you can see a car cross the median, took out a tree and a stop sign on the other side of the road.
Wait till you get a head-on accident.
This was only gonna happen once in every 14 and a half years, you know. That was what the experts down at DOT told Margaret and
Yeah.
I.
Since I've lived here, I've seen 4 trees taken out in the last year.
Taken out or just struck?
Yeah, or bent over, or signs
Oh, you're
down.
talking about smaller trees, not the
Yeah,
palm.
not
No,
the
no,
big,
no.
no,
No.
not
Yeah,
the
I-
palm trees.
Did they go over our median?
They went over the median
Like where the
towards,
palm trees were?
yes.
You knew it was gonna happen.
Well, I thought the specific requirement was to have frangible
Yeah.
Yeah.
plants there, which means no barrier.
Yeah, the
If
actual
the plant
goal
is
is.
there, you have to be able to drive through it, or it's not legal.
Yeah, supposedly. Yeah. But I agree, and
It will happen.
it will happen,
I see
and
in the
then
mornings when I leave at 5:30,
we'll see what happens.
cars,
But nevertheless, I had predicted way back when we're gonna wind up with a barrier there, and I hope that doesn't happen. No offense, but I really don't wanna have a barrier there.
Well, I was thinking if they were to put a barrier in, at least have it covered with some type of a plant to hide
Yeah,
it,
I don't know.
but,
That defeated the whole purpose of taking. the
And
trees
keep in mind,
down.
we have to deal with the visibility issue too.
Yeah,
Like I said, some of these issues get a little complicated, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
All right, Stan, do your thing.
Anyone else?
Stan has something to say.
She wants me to make a motion, but I can't do that.
Well, hang on one second, we're not
Can't do
done.
that
Have them
tonight.
give everybody an opportunity to speak yet. Anyone down here? Tom, Virginia?
Next time you.
I want to reiterate what was the point I was trying to make in that letter, and that is, you found out things today from Elle and from Scott and discussion that we've all presented, that this is part of what the advisory committee is about. People back in Stoneybrook may not necessarily know what's going on, and we try to do a report at the board meeting, but not many people come to that, so they're not gonna, so it falls upon all of us to communicate to your neighbors and your residents that you know, this is what's happening. Because I'll tell you, rumors get out there and stories get out there, and so, you know, you've got a little bit of information that you can pass on and try to set some of that right. Anybody else? Since we have an audience now, does an audience have any comments, questions? Okay, I'll take a motion now.
I'll make the
motion here.
All right, we got a motion from Stan and a second from Dick over here
Next time you make the
to
motion.
adjourn. Any discussion?
Tell me to make
All in
the
favor?
Aye.
We're
We're all
good at it.
good.
Go ahead, JP.
The next meeting.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
I told Blake they had a store today just to be here on time. So, if, I gotta see what my wife's schedule is, but if some case that it's my day to pick her up, is there any way we can push to 3:30? I won't know until 2 weeks from now.
I may have to
How
call in.
about just
I have to
coming
be
in a little
Moore
bit late
Haven
then?
that
Yeah.
day.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than
And I don't know if we'll get
3:30,
back in
because
time.
it's
That's
tough
just
on,
gonna
it's tough
throw
on them
everybody
too.
off.
Okay, that's fine.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done, thank
Yeah,
you.
'cause I did 4 hours of school today at 2:30.
Was there to make it 3:30?
No, yeah, no, that motion was to adjourn, we're not gonna change